Well, good evening from London. Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. I love women. Let me make that clear. I think they have a pretty tough time of it. Certainly historically, many people have fought very hard over many years to bring women closer to much needed equality. I back them with every fibre of my ghastly male being. That's why I've absolutely no issue with the fact the UK has a Minister for Women, as do many other countries, including Canada and Australia. America's Secretary of State has an Office for Women's Issues. New Zealand has an entire Ministry of Women, which sounds great, albeit a tad sexist. The UN has a Department for the Empowerment of Women, as well as a special rapporteur for women, a commission on the status of women, a conference on women, and an honorary ambassador for women in the form of Wonder Woman. This week, the Labour Party reshuffled its top tier and unveiled a shadow minister for women's health and women's mental health. What about men? Are there no issues with men's health and mental health? Tory MP Nick Fletcher is making waves by campaigning for a minister for men.
I'm from Doncaster, and I see an awful lot of young boys and young men out there with little aspiration, and life's not given the best opportunities, and they tend to be neglected by lots of people within the authority and also government as a whole. We need to be addressing this.
Well, he's right, of course, but the feminist blowback has been as swift as it's been predictable. One commentator quipped that as long as rooms of men are writing policy, every minister's already a minister for men. This research group said there's simply no problem for men because men are rich CEOs who run the male-dominated patriarchal world. But the facts suggest otherwise. Nearly 3/4 of adults who go missing are men. 87% of rough sleepers in the UK are men. Men are 3 times more likely to become alcoholics or drug addicts. Men are more likely to be sectioned. Most suicides are men. Most prisoners are men. Most people who are vilified and ostracised for sharing their opinions, they're men. Young men are falling behind in school, and young men are also constantly browbeaten by man-bashing movies like Barbie and phrases like rape culture, which teach them that they are evil by design until they can prove otherwise. Men are also subjected to a kind of sex-based shadow justice system, which relies more on the court of public opinion than the court of law. Campaigners hounded Manchester United into offloading their star player Mason Greenwood over a charge of attempted rape, which was dropped. He admits he made mistakes. He may have done some pretty awful things. Certainly tapes suggest that, but we all know for a fact that he's been found not guilty of any crime. Why should he have to lose his job? Now the knives are out for another United player, the Brazilian Anthony, who's facing claims from an ex-girlfriend, but hasn't been charged with anything either. Stars like Kevin Spacey and Johnny Depp have been hauled over the coals on the presumed assumption by the court of public opinion of guilt, but were then found not guilty after their reputations were trashed for sometimes years. Spanish football president Luis Rubiales has been called the very worst of society by Spain's government over that unwanted kiss at the World Cup final. Film director Woody Allen said, well, wait a minute, the kiss was wrong, but it didn't burn down a school. Now, Woody Allen might be the last person on earth who should be saying stuff like this in this arena, but would a woman have faced the same tidal wave of hate? Two things can be important at the same time. That's why we can have a Department of Health and a Department of Defence without closing hospitals to go to war. A minister for men seems a pretty smart idea to me, and if the UN needs an ambassador for men, well, look no further. Well, joining me now is the political journalist Ava Santina, TalkTV contributor Esther Krakue, making his much-anticipated return to the Piers Pack, the author and journalist Tony Parsons, whose new thriller, Who She Was, is out now. So, Tony, welcome.
And with a quote from your...
I was about to come to that. So,
the half on the back.
Well, on the front it says, Who She Was, Obsession Lies, a woman intent on escaping her past. Can you trust the story she tells? Which I assume was Meghan Markle's new autobiography. And then I find there's a brilliantly...
somebody else you know.
Brilliantly positive quote on the back, which says there's unputdownable and there's walk into lampposts with the latest Tony Parsons in your hand. No. Celia Walden, my wife. Anyway, it's a brilliant book, and everyone will love that, as they do all your books. It's why you're one of the biggest sellers in the country. Men, a minister for men, Tony.
My gut feeling is no.
Really?
Yeah, I enjoyed Barbie. I thought it was a really funny movie.
Did you?
It didn't make me feel persecuted. I know we differ on this, but
I'm not really persecuted. I just felt it was so lame, banging on about a dozen times about the patriarchy and all this.
Yeah,
stuff.
There's that, but I
mean, look, you're outnumbered. Look at you, 2-1 tonight.
Yeah. It made fun of everybody. You know, Barbie gets cellulite. I mean, it made fun of.
Yeah, but it was mainly mocking men.
But I don't feel...
Ken's a total doofus. He gets his comeuppance, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, no, I really loved it, in fact. The more you're talking, I'm finding I'm loving it more.
Have I lost you to this world?
No, but
you become a bit
thought
woke?
it's pretty even-handed, and I think that's why it's been, why it's made $1 billion is because essentially it's got, it's not...
All right, but,
but
on the Minister for Men subject, I think it is a serious subject. The reason that people like Andrew Tate get the traction they do, and 1 in 5 kids who come up to me in the street, boys, like teenage boys, early 20s, 1 in 5, maybe more, that come up to me on a regular basis, they want to talk about Andrew Tate. I think he has an extraordinary influence, for better or worse, right? And
well, definitely for worse.
But I do think he's filling a void. These young men don't feel they have role models like that anywhere else to go to. Why are you laughing?
Because it's just silly, isn't it? Because it's not.
Why?
Well, it's not a role model. It's
Actually, it is.
Actually, a lot of men hate women, and I think that he appeals to that subset.
Some men hate women.
Some men hate.
I would say
I
would say a very small minority, and there are some massive man-hating women out there. Not all. I don't think you two are.
There's not that you don't have that power dynamic that men who hate women have. So, like, I mean, for example, Andrew Tate has been imprisoned or under
house arrest. Hang on, be careful what you say. Andrew, this is going to be part of the debate we come to. Andrew Tate hasn't been charged with anything yet.
Okay.
He's been held under house arrest for months on end.
Andrew Tate has been accused of human trafficking, and how many
court
boys
of law
don't believe that?
Well, the court of law will decide whether he's guilty or not. But the court of public opinion, and you've just been guilty of it yourself. You've already convicted him in your eyes.
The court of public opinion have already decided that apparently this is just like some creation that has never existed.
No,
and,
that's not what people are saying. People are saying they're waiting
saying.
until the verdict is out, which should have been the standard, which would be the standard if we were talking about a woman. But apparently, because of his public persona, we're more inclined to assume that he's guilty.
Well, I'm sorry, but I don't think that women can trust the court process anymore.
I'm sorry, that's not fair, because actually men are hugely disadvantaged, particularly men that are in the public eye. Look, the point about this Minister for Men issue, I don't agree with it, because I don't agree with the Minister for Women. I think if you're going to talk about issues like, the suicide rates or cancer rates amongst men and women, for instance, you should have independent ministries for those specific issues, because men and women, if you have a ministry for men and a ministry for women, at some point their interests will collide. So if you wanted to get funding for prostate cancer,
you need a bit more engagement with
it.
fathers. I think fathers need to be a bit more engaged with their sons. I think that the reason why...
But also,
family courts are
can't we separate toxic masculinity from masculinity?
Yeah, well, I think...
there's nothing wrong with being a masculine male.
No, but it's become, since we were young men, it's become, there's no Muhammad Ali to look up to these days. You've got these, a surprisingly large number of them seem to be at Manchester United, I have to say.
I have a problem in a way with, I'm not defending Mason Greenwood. I think he's a pretty scummy guy from what I've seen and read.
I was thinking of the latest one.
Well, the latest one, Anthony, the winger, again, an ex-girlfriend's made allegations, but that's what they are.
Yeah, but he hasn't been suspended.
And we know from the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp thing, you can throw all the mud you like and it will stick.
Absolutely.
But if ultimately these guys, one has not been charged with any crime, and there may be reasons for that, but Anthony may be completely innocent, or he may not. But I just don't like the trial.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But I do think that those guys, those young, those elite athletes, I think that they have a responsibility. They have a responsibility to young men. They have a responsibility.
But we have a duty as a society to be fair to them.
Oh, of course,
if they are leveled with allegations, which may or may not be true.
I think the reason why there is a void in sort of masculine role models is because we can't agree on what masculinity is. Right? If you have a man that likes to go to the gym, who says he likes young, beautiful women or whatever, he's a toxic male. Because you have a bunch of old hags complaining that they're not attracted. They're not being... No, seriously. You have a bunch of old, overweight women whinging that those type of men don't find them attractive. We don't agree on what a masculine man is. And that's why there is a void. That's why you have such a spectrum between Andrew Tate and John
I don't even think the patriarchy exists anymore.
You are being disingenuous.
What's the biggest movie? What's the biggest movie of the year? The biggest movie of the year celebrates the matriarchy, and it is starring and produced by the production company of Margot Robbie, who's the hottest... can I say that without being arrested? She's very not unattractive lady in Hollywood who is making about $100 million from producing this barnstorming movie.
That doesn't mean
it's all about the matriarchy and how awful men are.
That doesn't mean
Where's the patriarchy? It's been quashed.
The patriarchy is in our court system, which only prosecutes 1% of all allegations against rape.
The patriarchy
is in our
somehow
workplaces.
vanishes in the family court system when most men are not actually even given custody or allowed to see their children.
The patriarchy is in our workplace. Okay, so my boss, ultimate boss for TalkTV, is a woman. My boss at The Sun, where Tony and I write columns, is a woman. 2 out of the 3 panellists tonight are women.
Yeah.
How's the old patriarchy looking? A little bit diminished.
Media has always been ahead of the rest of the country. Like we know that because it's a bit more liberal. We do know that, but like
why don't we complain about the fact that the lack of female bin cleaners, right? The patriarchy only works one way. You want to see women in front-facing positions that look glamorous, but we never complain about female bricklayers, for instance, or female bin.
I have never actually seen a female bin.
I've never seen one. Yeah,
and yet we can't even call them bin men because that's offensive to women.
Exactly.
When do you ever see women doing the bin stuff?
Well, you see them in the ads. In
well, yeah,
so they have a.
I mean, I make my wife put out the bins. Don't get me wrong, but I'm talking about actual. Yeah, of course. What? Of course.
Yeah, in Barbie, they say the patriarchy.
Patriarchy is very much alive and one in my house.
Kenny's told that the patriarchy still exists. We're just a bit more quiet about it now.